In 1955, the black community of Montgomery, Alabama, decided that they were going to boycott the public transportation system to protest segregation. This was a massive undertaking on their part because so many people use public transit to get to their jobs or to be able to go to the grocery store. Yet, in doing so, they were able to have a huge impact. Without the fares from the black community, the Montgomery public transit system went bankrupt. And after 382 days of protest, the Supreme Court handed down a major decision stating that it was illegal for the bus system to segregate out its riders. This was a huge win for the civil rights movement at the time. And they thought that this would create the momentum that would eventually result in a more fair and equitable society. Unfortunately, that's not what happened. With every win from the civil rights movement, the white supremacists would push back, often violently. The Ku Klux Klan, they would go about killing members of the black community, knowing that they likely would not even be taken to court. And because of this, many people who would have volunteered for the movement, they started to back away. Now in 1963, after 8 years of lunch counter sit-ins, freedom rides, forced school integrations, the movement had all but come to a halt. Racism in the South was as bad as it has ever been. Racism in the North wasn't much better. The KKK was trying to assassinate the leaders of the civil rights movement. Protesters were getting arrested by police and beaten with impunity. And the black community was becoming fatigued and people didn't want to volunteer their time anymore. Now this attrition, it was so bad that the leaders of the civil rights movement, they actually wondered whether or not it was going to fail. In fact, Martin Luther King Jr. privately confessed that he was burned out and he didn't know whether or not anything that they were doing would result in substantive change. And to punctuate those doubts, when he was organizing for the protests that were going to happen in Birmingham, he couldn't get any adults from the community to really volunteer for them. Like a lot of them were very reluctant to do so. And the reason why is because the police force was backed by the KKK. They knew it was super dangerous. So King, when he arrived, he had to pivot and he started recruiting teenagers and young adults into the movement. And to be honest, the parents were livid. They couldn't believe that he was going to put their children in harm's way, but he had no choice. He needed protesters and he needed a win in Birmingham. So he starts teaching these young people all of the tactics of nonviolent resistance. And the day comes where they're going to protest and there's media all over the place. And one photographer took a very famous photograph. It was of a police dog attacking a young black teenage boy. And this picture, it just went viral. I mean, it literally went all over the country. It was on the front pages of all the newspapers. And this allows the momentum to start to pick up again. It sparks it. And then all these people come to the March on Washington, and this is where King gives his famous I Have a Dream speech. Then the KKK, they struck back. They blew up the 16th Street Baptist Church in Birmingham, killing 4 little girls, injuring a 5th. This backfired on them because that created more momentum, which ultimately allowed for the Civil Rights Act to be signed into law in February of 1964. Now, if King had listened to those doubts, if he had given up, then February of 1964 would have never happened. Doubt is something that we all deal with. The author, Susie Kasim, once said, "Doubt kills more dreams than failure ever will." Doubt is that voice in the back of your mind that's always whispering to you that you're going to fail. So the question is, where does doubt come from? How do we overcome doubt? And how do we gain back our confidence when doubt has consumed us? To begin, I want to introduce you to a friend of mine who has dealt with a very specific form of doubt that we've all dealt with, which is better known as imposter syndrome. Will you join me in the kitchen?